1999 Cadillac Fleetwood Limited, and I'm going to show you guys why I think this is one of the coolest Cadillacs ever made.
Before we continue on with the review, let's talk a little bit about the history of the Fleetwood Limited. Back in the mid-1990s, Cadillac discontinued their large Fleetwood sedan due to a drop in demand for these types of cars. However, only a few short years later, Cadillac teamed up with the Lima, Ohio-based Superior Coach, or what is now named Accubuilt, to cut, stretch, and enhance DeVilles into opulent sedans called Fleetwood Limiteds. Superior would receive DeVilles taken directly off the assembly line that were ordered by customers for them to be stretched. Superior stripped down the cars to the bare sheet metal, and then they would expertly cut along their frame where they would make the 12-inch stretch in the trunk and back seat. Superior would then add their special options, put on the new body panels, reassemble the interior, paint the vehicles, and then send the cars off to the designated Cadillac dealerships. Although Cadillac Fleetwood Limiteds were built for only 2 model years, 1998 and 1999, the company was able to build a total of 781 units. In the 2000 model year, Cadillac and Superior created another stretched vehicle for the newly redesigned DeVille, which was called the DeVille Executive Sedan, or DES for short. While this car was similar to the Fleetwood Limited, it only received a 6-inch stretch in the back seat and not the trunk. There were even less of these DESs produced than Fleetwood Limiteds, and so the car was eventually discontinued along with the Fleetwood Limited nameplate. And now back to the review. Now, one of the special options of the Fleetwood Limited was this chrome grille cap, and the purpose of it is just to be more distinguished from the normal DeVille, just to let it stand out, give it something bigger on the front of it, so more chrome, and looks a little bit more luxurious too. Aside from the chrome grille cap and maybe the vinyl roof, the front of the Fleetwood Limited looks just like a DeVille. But as you work your way back to the end of the car, where the wheels are, you can see this is where they made the first stretch at the back of the car for the rear seat, and this is where they made the top stretch of 6 inches in the trunk. So that's where you can only tell that this is a stretched vehicle, and they only did it around that rear wheel. Still looking at the same area in the Fleetwood Limited, you can see another one of its special options, and it is this side skirt here. This was really a nice looking option for the Fleetwood Limited. I think it really helps set off the car, especially on the side angle. But to take it off, if you wanted to make it look more like a normal DeVille, there's actually a little lever under here which you pull. Might be able to see it unlock there. And then it just pops out like so. And here you can see where you pull that, and that releases this. Now, one of the special perks of having a Fleetwood Limited is this vinyl top here. This is very different. This is actually not used on many of the normal DeVilles. Some might have it, but all Fleetwood Limiteds had to have this as an option. It's stretched all the way to the back of the car, and that hides the stretch marks on the roof, instead of having the normal metal roof that a normal DeVille would have had. One of the nice features of Cadillacs back in the day, and they've had this for a long time, is the cornering light. And it's very helpful to see when you're making a turn at nighttime and you can't see where you're going. It lights up your way. Now, looking underneath the hood is the engine of the Fleetwood Limited. It was the North Star 32 valve V8. It put out 275 horsepower and 300 pound-feet of torque, which was actually quite the powerful engine for its day. It was a Cadillac exclusive engine, and just about every single Cadillac back then had it. It was a very popular engine, but say what you want about it, but we've had good luck with it, and it actually runs very well. We've taken good care of it, at least done our best, and it's done a wonderful job so far. In case you're ever wondering what a Fleetwood Limited sounds like, here's your chance. Now, in case if anyone was curious, the Fleetwood Limited actually has a larger oil system than the normal DeVille, because they knew that when they were building this car, they would be used by different people who might want to be chauffeured, and it would be running around a lot, and it would actually be sitting and just idling like it is now. So they give it a larger oil system, so it actually wouldn't overheat quite as easily. Another nice thing about underneath the Cadillac hood is here that they even embroidered Cadillac underneath the hood, so when you have your hood open, everyone knows that you are driving a Cadillac. Now when you first walk up to the Fleetwood Limited with your key fob, when it's locked, you can tell it says number 1 on the back. There's also a number 2, but this is for number 1 driver. You each have a different settings, but the neat thing is when you hit unlock here, it moves the seat and it changes the radio presets and everything else to my number 1 setting. And if it was the number 2 key fob, it would change all that stuff to number 2. It's a very nice feature. When you walk into the car, it's already ready for you to go. So this is where I spend most of the time in the Fleetwood Limited, in the front seat. It's a very nice place to be. I have heated seats, low, high, everything I need. I have 4-way lumbar, which is really nice. And memory seats over here on these buttons. When you press number 1, it'll of course go to whatever position you set, change the mirrors, everything else, including the climate control, the radio presets, all that stuff. It changes to my settings. And see, if I go to number 2, I'll change the seat to the other person, including everything else. So it'll move it all wherever I need. And when I want to get out of the car, just hit the exit button, and then I get out. Something I wanted to point out was just the keys. I know General Motors had done this for a long time with just square and round keys, but these Cadillac ones are gold, and they just feel so nice in the hand. And it just has a nice embroidering there of the Cadillac emblem, and it just looks really nice, and it feels nice starting the car. And it even has a little chip in this key here, which the car recognizes, and once it recognizes it, that this is the key to this car, it'll start the engine. Now, of course, here's the gauge cluster. Not really much gauges, but pretty much just all screen, but it's actually very nice looking, very modern, I think. Over here, of course, you have all of your different climate controls, very typical stuff. And over here, you have the different buttons to change what shows up on the screen, or just to see different I guess maybe engine temperatures, system stuff like that. It's very typical as well. And of course, you can change from English to the metric system here. Of course, everything changes to Celsius and kilometers, stuff like that. So it's very, very interesting, but you can do that. And something else that's very interesting is this display on-off button. Now, you might think, oh, that turns off the display, but it turns off most of it. Of course, you can still see how fast you're going and what gear you're in. But the interesting thing is, you might think, well, what happens if you're low on fuel? Well, the system will actually turn back on the display once it realizes you're low on fuel, and then you'll be able to see how much fuel you have left. Now, a very important spot for any car is the center armrest. And in the Fleetwood Limited, when you open it up, it's very large. It has a good amount of space, but it also has these little cup holders which kind of slide in and out right there, which is kind of funny, but they work and they come out. And it also has a little coin holder here, which has its own little spot on a rail there. You can put all of your little coins inside of, so they don't jostle around and get loose in your car. And it even has little holders at the bottom for CDs and cassette tapes. Now, another topic of discussion is actually the owner's manual. It's actually really high quality. This is just the holder for the actual book, but the leather is actually very soft. It has the Cadillac emblem embroidered in gold and Cadillac here, so you know what it is, but it's just really thick pages here for the cover. But it also explains everything you'd have for gold key headquarters, different stuff like that from Cadillac. But here's the actual booklet, and it's really not that long. It's probably only 300 pages long or so, but it explains everything about the car, and just the holder is just really high quality, and you almost wouldn't expect that from a car, a Cadillac even from this era. It's just very nice. A funny little quirk of owning a Cadillac Fleetwood Limited, or buying one, is actually that they gave you this Cadillac embroidered calculator and case. It's actually, believe it or not, one of the thinnest calculators I have ever seen. And it just goes out of this little case that it comes with. It says Cadillac on it. And there's the back. So you could do your calculating while you're riding around in the back of your Fleetwood Limited. One of the nice features of Cadillacs back in the day is the right mirror actually tilts backwards when you put it in reverse, so you don't hit any curbs or anything. I'll show you that. It tilts down. And then when I put it back in the park, it waits 5 seconds, and then it goes back up into its original spot. Now, another interesting features of Cadillacs is actually inside the glove compartment here, which is, of course, very roomy. But looking at this button here, you can actually see a valet mode. It says valet here, and when you press that button, it actually disables
the garage door openers, fuel door release, and the trunk even. So if you're being valeted around, they can't steal anything from the car when you drop it off at a valet. Now another way for the front occupants to find more comfort is the headrests. Of course they go up and down, but the neatest thing is that they actually tilt forward and backwards like that. So you can find the perfect spot for your head to be leaning backwards at the perfect angle that you want. It's really neat. Really neat attention to detail there on Cadillac's part. So safety was actually a really big concern back in the day. I know at late end of the 90s, a lot of requirements coming out for car companies to have side airbags and different stuff like that. And this car has it for 1999. And of course, it has front airbags, but it also has side airbags in the seat on both sides. It has StabiliTrak and traction control, which is really kind of ahead of its time, and General Motors still uses a lot of those features today. One of the really neat features of Cadillacs back in the early 90s is they actually developed this technology. When you, I guess, drive at different speeds, at highway speeds, it would actually tighten the steering wheel. It would tighten, I guess, the feel, and it would be actually a little bit more challenging to turn the wheel when you're on highway speeds. And that's kind of just because when you change lanes, you don't really want to have a too loose of steering because you don't really need to turn the wheel that far. But when you do slow down, it actually loosens the steering, and then you can more easily turn the wheel to park into parking spaces or make turns. It was really incredible, and it still works very well. Another little neat piece of technology that Cadillac had back in the day is for the radio. They actually had different presets, of course, for different drivers, number 1 and 2, which is normal, and I already kind of explained that. But another little feature it had with the presets is that you could actually change it to have home and away features on the radio. And you can actually set 2 different places. Say if you have a home in Ohio and have another home in Florida, you can have different presets saved for each location, and you don't have to go through the radio and completely change it out every time you go between homes or locations. It was very interesting. Another one of the Fleetwood Limited's really handy features is actually these buttons on the steering wheel. There's 2 sides to the steering wheel. Of course, you can see those buttons there. There's 4 of them. On this side, we have controls for the fan speed and also the temperature. So if you pull it up, fan speed goes up, temperature up and down, very nice. Over here you have you're able to select your tracks or different presets and volume. It's very nice. Now, one of the things you'll notice in this car when you have the key in the ignition is that bong noise, and that's a typical GM sound that has been in their cars for seems like decades now, and they are still using a very similar noise. And I think this is one of the first cars, and at least in this era, late 90s, when they implemented that noise in their cars, and they still use it today. It's kind of funny. Over here on the passenger side of the car, there's this actually round rotary knob, which you might have noticed already, and it's really interesting. It's actually for the climate control, and what it does is when you press it, you can turn it on, and what that does is you can change the climate control on the passenger side 4 degrees warmer or 4 degrees colder. It's really neat for the time how they used to have a little bit of climate control for both people in the car. Something I may have noticed just by coincidence, or who knows why they did this, but on the seat belt here, it's almost like there's a little Cadillac logo embroidered into the belt. I don't know why that is or why they have that, but it's just kind of a neat little, possibly attention to detail, but it may be just a kind of a coincidence, but it's kind of a funny looking logo there, Cadillac logo. One of my just absolutely favorite features just of these old Cadillacs from back in the day that they don't have anymore, any car really has, just the horn. Just the horn is just beautiful. I just love that sound. Something I miss today, and I'm always going to miss these horns. They just sound so cool to me. I love them. I thought you guys might enjoy a quick video of what the car sounds like from the driver's seat. So here's a quick video of me driving around. So of course, this is where you want to be when you're being chauffeured in the Fleetwood Limited, in the back seat. It's just so much room from the stretch that I can't even, when I'm leaning back, I can't even reach the front seat. It's just amazing how much space is here. I mean, anyone, just about any length of person can fit easily back here and just be so comfortable, stretch out, relax, and just sleep or whatever as you're being chauffeured in your Fleetwood Limited. Now taking a closer look at the footrests back here, they're actually very nice. They really softly padded, just like the floors, and they have even leather on the sides. But the neatest thing is they actually added this kind of tough, almost like Velcro type plastic on the bottom, so it wouldn't slide around when you put your feet on it. It'll keep the footrest in place when you're using it in the back seat. So that was a really nice attention to detail on Cadillac's part. Now, another feature you don't see too much these days is definitely the cigarette plugs here, the cigarette lighters. They're on both of the back doors here, and of course the front seats have one too, but they're just kind of cool, and they don't exist so much anymore in new cars. But that's it. Now, aside from there being an extra 6 inches and footrests in the back seat, you also have these nice vanity mirrors where you can see yourself, turn up and down the brightness, and check your makeup or your hair or whatever when you're being chauffeured in the back of your Fleetwood Limited. It's very nicely padded too, and even the ceiling is very nice. While you're in the back seat, you can tell that this is actually very similar to the center armrest in the front seat. So you get lots of space, which is very nice, and another set of these funny little cup holders that kind of pop out again as you use it. So it's really nice in the back seat. Very, very typical. But one thing you won't find, no pass-through. No pass-through to the trunk, but I guess with a large enough trunk, you don't need one, so you gotta wonder, I guess they don't need it. So this Fleetwood Limited doesn't have every single option, unfortunately. There's 2 things it's really missing. That would be the writing tables, which would have been either a single or dual writing table on the back by the seat, but it would have kind of bolted into the little map holder here, and it could fold out, and it was real wood, and you could write on it, do whatever you'd like. And another thing it's missing would have been a VCR/DVD player. It would have had a nice actually screen up here with controls inside the armrest and on the door, and it would have had the DVD/VCR player up in the front, which actually was a big hunk of just ugliness that was kind of in the middle of the car. I'm kind of happy this car doesn't have it, because it really was kind of outdated, but it was really actually futuristic for its time. So, of course, you can see the trunk of this car is absolutely massive. This with 6 inches just makes it so much bigger. And I'm going to kind of demonstrate by trying to reach for a tissue box all the way in the back end. I almost have to climb into the car to reach just the edge of it. I don't really know how old people that would have bought this car were able to do that or expected to do that, but hey, you've got the trunk space, so it's kind of nice. So, of course, when you get a flat tire, that's not good, but Cadillac actually gives you a big tire. It's hidden under here. This mat, I'll move this out here. And you have to unscrew this guy. Which might take a minute. Once it's out, you have a jack and a little donut tire that'll work for replacing your tire if you get a flat. Another oddity in the Fleetwood Limited trunk is that it actually has a fuel door release here. So then if you're out of fuel and you need to fill up the car and it doesn't work, you can pull it and hear that? Fuel door opens. And one of the most unique features of these Cadillacs back in the day is that Cadillac actually put in a 12-disc CD player here, which is just like a monster. Let me show you how it works. When you open this door, you can hear it. Actually pops out this weird tray stack of all these discs. There's 12 of them, of course. And how it works is when you slide it back in, you do that real quick. And then you close the door. Have to have it closed all the way for it to work. There's actually a little elevator on this side of it which moves up and down, and it pulls out discs. And it actually is very interesting how it works, but it chooses one according to what you press on the radio. And one of the things you might have been wondering about the disc player is, since there's 12 of them, how do you pick disc number 8 or 9 or 7 or something when there's only 6 buttons on the radio? Well, the interesting thing is that actually it's possible. I mean, move it over to disc here, cassette, there's cassette and disc. Now it's on disc 1, track 1, that's what automatically starts off for. But say if I wanted 7, to get to 7 through 12, you actually hold down the button until it beeps. Then you have CD 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 on there. One of the features that's really handy that this car has that Cadillac has had for many decades, including other car companies, is this trunk pull-down feature. And you don't really see it too much anymore, but it's really nice that you don't have to actually slam the trunk every time you use it.
This is probably the last of the old-style boaty and floaty luxury Cadillacs that will ever be built, which is what makes it so unique, and I know I'll miss seeing these kind of cars on the road. Just the sight of these vehicles makes me stop and stare. I love the lines, the distinctive chrome, and the bold features of these American boats. While new Cadillacs are excellent cars and probably better than they have ever been before, I hope more than anything that Cadillac will discover their fantastic roots again and bring cars just like this Fleetwood back into the modern era. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed the video and learned something new about my most favorite car of all time. Thank you so much for watching.